the day my father handed me to an enslaved woman. Everyone in Beaufort County thought it was punishment. They were wrong. It was the beginning of revenge. By the summer of 1852, I had become the shame of Pemberton House. Not the sort of shame people spoke aloud in church parlors or over brandy in polished drawing rooms, but the kind men lowered their voices for, the kind women whispered about behind lace fans, the kind fathers carried like a hidden wound. My name was William Pemberton. I was 26 years old, and I weighed nearly 340 pounds. I had not earned a day of honest labor in my life. I had inherited comfort without discipline, appetite without restraint, and guilt without confession. My mother died giving birth to me. My father never said it outright, but I learned early that my existence had cost him something he could never recover. So he gave me everything else: food, rooms, silence, excuses. He let me grow large enough to disappear inside my own body. Large enough that no one could look at me without seeing weakness, without seeing excess, without seeing failure. By then the county had 100 names for me. Poor William, the melancholy son, the Pemberton heir who never became a man. No one said those names to my face. But a plantation teaches you to hear what people don't want you to hear, and a man who cannot outrun his own body becomes very skilled at listening. On the morning it began, the heat was already unbearable. July in North Carolina always felt like punishment from God. The air clung to the skin. The river moved like sick blood through the low country. Even the birds sounded tired. I woke late, as always. Sheets damp with sweat. Head aching from the whiskey I had no business drinking the night before. Outside my room I could hear servants moving softly through the hall, careful not to disturb me. They were always careful. People around me had learned that my temper was easier to manage than my sadness. When I finally pulled myself from bed, I found my father waiting in the downstairs study. That alone told me something was wrong. Harrison Pemberton did not wait for anyone, especially not for me. He stood behind his desk, as if the house itself answered to him. Broad shoulders, weathered face, eyes like cold iron. He had built his life from tobacco, shipping routes, and the bodies of 127 enslaved people. Men called him fair because he paid his debts. Women called him respectable because he sat in church every Sunday and quoted scripture by heart. But power has a way of polishing rot until it resembles virtue. He did not ask me to sit. "William," he said, "you will listen carefully." That was the first thing that unsettled me. Not anger, not disappointment. Control. Absolute control. As though he had already decided the shape of my life, and had only called me there to watch me step into it. "There has been a decision," he said. "A treatment." I laughed. Or tried to. My throat was too dry. "Another doctor." "No. You are being placed under supervision." That sounded ridiculous enough to amuse me until he spoke the next words. "An enslaved woman named Mercy will take complete charge of your care." For a second I thought I had misheard him. The room stayed perfectly still. The clock on the wall ticked once, then twice, and my father's face told me I had heard exactly right. "Charge," I repeated. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, "that for the next 6 months, you will obey her instructions in all matters affecting your health." I stared at him. I had spent my whole life beneath his authority. That part was not new. But this, to be handed over, not to a physician, not to a clergyman, not even to a white overseer, but to an enslaved woman. It was madness. No. Worse than madness. It was humiliation arranged like medicine. You cannot be serious. Oh, I am serious, he said. Deadly serious. He slid a folded letter across the desk. Black wax seal broken. Heavy parchment. I did not touch it, but I saw enough. Not business correspondence. Not family. Something else. Father did not want named aloud. There are some men who carry danger the way other men carry cologne. You smell it before they speak. That morning my father smelled of danger, of fear carefully dressed as authority. You are unwell, he said. Your body is failing you. You cannot climb a staircase without stopping. You choke in your sleep. You rage like a lunatic. And if you continue in this fashion, you will die before you are 30. I wanted to argue, wanted to call him cruel, wanted to accuse him of staging some grotesque lesson in obedience. But the truth was, every word he said was true. My body had become a prison, my mind another one, and there were nights when I woke with blood in my mouth from biting my own tongue during dreams I could never fully remember, dreams that smelled like hay and fear, dreams with a child's cry buried somewhere inside them. I don't need a slave woman ordering me about, I said. I need to be left alone. That was when my father leaned both hands onto the desk and said the most frightening thing I had ever heard him say. No, William. You need to survive. There was no love in the sentence, no tenderness, only necessity, as though my life had become a problem larger than myself, as though my death would inconvenience forces neither of us could name. She begins tomorrow, he said. You will comply. And if I refuse? He held my gaze. If you refuse, I will make you wish you had not. That ended the conversation, not because I accepted it, because I understood something I had not understood before. This was not one of my father's corrections, not one of his cold little efforts to whip me into usefulness. This was desperation, and Harrison Pemberton only grew desperate when something far more powerful than shame was standing at the door. I met Mercy the next morning. She arrived at my room just after dawn. No servant had ever entered my chambers that early without trembling. Mercy did not tremble. She knocked once, then opened the door before I answered. The first thing I noticed was that she was older than I expected. 38, perhaps. The second was her stillness. Not meekness, not submission. Stillness, the kind that belongs to people who have already lived through enough horror to stop fearing ordinary men. She wore a plain dress and a white head wrap. Her face gave away almost nothing. Her eyes gave away even less. But there was intelligence there. Sharp, cold, measuring. My name is Mercy, she said. Your father has placed you in my care. Even half-dressed, sour with sleep, and thick with humiliation, I nearly laughed in her face. You are a slave. She did not flinch. Yes, and there are moments a man remembers because something in him shifts and never shifts back. This was one of them, because no one had ever answered me like that. Not a servant, not a woman, certainly not an enslaved woman. I told her to bring breakfast, ham, biscuits, gravy, coffee, sugar, the usual. She went to the window and threw open the curtains. Sunlight flooded the room like judgment. No, she said. I sat upright. What? You will eat what I prepare. You will bathe. You will dress yourself. And then you will walk downstairs. I could only stare, not because of what she said, because of the way she said it. No fear, no performance of obedience, only certainty, as if she had been waiting for this exact morning. "And if I don't?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, then answered in a voice so calm it chilled me more than shouting would have. "Then I will tell your father, and he will enforce my authority." Behind her words I heard the machinery of something larger than household discipline, something already in motion, something I did not understand. It would take me months to understand it. By then it would be too late. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Without looking back, she said, "Master William, this treatment will change your body. Then, after a beat, and if God is just, it may yet change your soul." The door closed softly behind her, and for the first time in many years, I was afraid, not of my father, of illness, not of death, of her. The first day Mercy took control of my life began with humiliation. It took me nearly 2 hours just to leave my room. Standing up from the bed made my knees scream. Walking to the washroom left me gasping like a drowning man. By the time I reached the bath, sweat had soaked through my nightshirt. Mercy watched the entire time. Quiet. Patient. Observing. Not once did she offer pity, and somehow that made everything worse. When the bathwater was ready, 2 house servants helped me step inside the wooden tub. I hated that part most. I could not reach my own back. I could not bend far enough to wash my legs. My own body had become something I had to ask permission to move. Mercy handed me soap without a word. Then she said something that made the servants glance at one another nervously. "You will wash yourself as much as you can, Master William. Whatever you cannot reach, you will learn to reach in time." After the bath came the stairs. 32 steps from the second floor to the dining room. I had never noticed how many before. That morning I counted every one. By the time I reached the bottom, my chest burned so badly I thought my ribs might split open. My hands trembled. My vision blurred. And still Mercy walked beside me with that same calm expression. "Sit." I collapsed into the chair like a dying man. "What do I eat?" I demanded. My voice came out harsher than I intended. Mercy placed a plate in front of me. 1 boiled egg, 1 piece of dry toast, half an apple, a cup of weak tea. No sugar. No cream. I stared at the plate, then at her. Then back at the plate again. This is a joke. This is starvation. Mercy did not raise her voice, not even a little. "No, Master William. This is nourishment. Starvation is what your body has been suffering for years." I nearly threw the plate at her, but something stopped me. Not fear. Not obedience. Curiosity. No one had ever spoken to me like that before, not even my father. "You expect me to live on this? For now. Your body must relearn what hunger means." I ate the egg first, then the apple. Then the toast. Slowly. Suspiciously. Waiting for the hunger to claw harder at my stomach. But something strange happened. The food settled gently instead of heavily. My chest didn't burn. My head felt clearer. "What happens next?" I asked. Mercy folded her hands calmly in front of her. Now came the part I would come to dread most. "We walk." "Walk where?" "Outside." I laughed, a bitter sound. "I can barely stand."
Then today we walk a short distance. Tomorrow we walk a little further. And if I refuse? She met my eyes. Directly, again. That unsettling stillness behind them. Then I inform your father. And he will enforce my authority. Something in the way she said it made my stomach twist. Not anger, not threat. Certainty. We began with the front path. 200 yards from the house to the iron gate. A distance I had never walked in my adult life. By the time we reached the halfway point, my lungs were burning. Sweat poured down my neck. My knees trembled. I can't, I wheezed. Mercy stopped. But she did not tell me to sit. Instead she pointed toward the gate still 50 yards ahead. You can. You simply choose not to. Her words made something inside me flare. Anger, pride. Something ugly and stubborn. You think this is a game? Mercy stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the tiny scars along her hands. Scars earned from years of work. And something else. Something harder. No, Master William. This is survival. If you continue as you are, your body will kill you, probably in your sleep. The words hung in the humid air. And suddenly the walk no longer felt like punishment. It felt like a verdict. I forced my feet forward. One step, then another, then another. When we reached the gate, I leaned against the iron bars and closed my eyes. 30 minutes, Mercy said. You rest. Then we walk back. That was the first day.
Further, the third day further still. Within a week we reached the slave quarters nearly half a mile away. My body hated every step, but something inside me had begun to change. Not just my weight, my mind. The dreams began during the second week. At first they were faint, shadows, whispers, a child's laughter somewhere far away. Then the child appeared, a little girl, standing in the distance, watching me. Every night. And when I woke, I could still feel her eyes on me, watching, waiting, judging. I told Mercy about the dreams during one of our walks. I'm seeing someone, I said quietly. A girl. She stands far away. Just watching. Mercy did not stop walking. What does she look like? Small. Dark hair. Sad. For the first time since we met, Mercy's steps slowed, just slightly. What else do you feel when you see her? She asked. Anger. I swallowed, because the next word came out before I could stop it. Toward me. Mercy said nothing. We finished the walk in silence, but something had changed in the air between us. That night, after I fell asleep, Mercy prepared my morning tea. Inside the cup she added a tincture she had been mixing for days. Roots, herbs, powders, measured carefully. It would not poison me, not yet. It would simply open the door to memories I had buried, memories that had been rotting inside my mind for years. Because Mercy knew something I did not, something my father had worked very hard to hide. The girl in my dreams was not a dream. She had a name, Grace. And 3 years earlier, I had killed her. By the third week, my body had begun to change. But it wasn't the weight loss people noticed first. It was the silence. I stopped complaining. Stopped shouting for food. Stopped demanding whiskey at night. Something inside me had gone quiet. Not peaceful. Never peaceful. Just hollow. By the end of the month I had lost nearly 70 pounds. My face looked different in the mirror. Less swollen. my jawline emerging like something buried beneath years of indulgence. But the real change was happening in my mind, because the dreams were no longer dreams. Grace began visiting me every night, not speaking, never speaking, just standing at the foot of my bed, watching, her small figure barely taller than the edge of the mattress, dark hair falling across her shoulders, eyes that never blinked, eyes that knew exactly what I had done. And every night I woke gasping, certain she had been standing inches from my face. During the day it became worse. I saw her reflection in windows, standing beneath trees, watching from the far edge of fields. Every time I turned my head, she was gone. But the feeling remained, the certainty that I was no longer alone with my thoughts. I tried telling my father. He visited one afternoon in early September. He looked pleased when he saw me, almost proud. "You look remarkably better," he said. "Mercy has done excellent work." But I wasn't listening. My hands were shaking. "Father, something is wrong. I'm seeing a child." His expression hardened instantly. "What child?" "I think it might be the girl from the barn." For a moment the room felt like it had lost all air. Then my father's voice came down like a blade. "That was an accident. Ancient history. But I remember," I whispered. "I remember things I didn't remember before." He stepped closer. His eyes were colder than I had ever seen them. "You remember nothing. A child fell. It was tragic. That is all." I stared at him. Something inside my chest cracked open. Because in that moment, I understood something terrible. My father had never forgotten. He had simply chosen silence. "Continue your treatment with Mercy," he said. "Become useful for once in your life." And with that, he left me alone with the ghost of the girl I had killed. That evening I found Mercy in the garden behind the slave quarters. She was gathering herbs in the fading light. Her hands moved slowly through the leaves like she was listening to something beneath the soil. "Mercy," I said, "I need to talk to you." She did not look up. "What is it, Master William?" "I'm seeing Grace." Her hands stopped moving, just for a moment, then continued. "Good." The word hit me like a slap. "What do you mean, good?" "I mean she deserves to haunt you. She deserves to remind you what you took from her." I felt my knees weaken. "How is this happening?" I whispered. "The dead don't just appear." Now Mercy looked at me. Really looked. And for the first time since we met, I saw something behind her calm expression. Hatred. Ancient and patient. "I am not making you see anything. I am opening your eyes. The world is thinner than you think between the living and the dead. Some of us understand that. Your people prefer not to. Make it stop," I begged. "I can't live like this." Mercy stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Grace couldn't live at all. You made sure of that." The words crushed the last wall inside my mind. I collapsed to my knees in the dirt. I didn't mean. I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing. Mercy watched me sob. Her face unreadable. Cold. Sorry does not bring her back. Sorry does not repair what you destroyed. I wiped my face with shaking hands. "Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix this." Mercy studied me carefully, measuring, deciding. Finally she spoke. "You cannot fix it, but you may be able to make it mean something." I looked up. "What do you mean?" She stepped back and gestured toward the plantation house, toward the place where my father slept, where power had lived for generations. Your father belongs to an organization. Men who believe blood gives them power. They call themselves the Order of the Crimson Crown. My stomach twisted. How do you know about that? Because enslaved people hear everything. We see things your kind believes are hidden. There is a ledger, she continued, hidden beneath this house. A record of every ritual, every victim, every man involved. 43 dead. My throat tightened. Dear God. Mercy's voice grew colder. You want redemption, Master William. Help me destroy them. Expose the order. I stared at her, understanding slowly spreading through my chest like ice. You want me to betray my father. Mercy met my eyes. I want you to stop evil. Is that betrayal, or justice? For the first time in my life, I had no answer. But somewhere in the shadows behind Mercy, I thought I saw Grace again, watching, waiting, judging the choice I would make next. And I realized something that terrified me more than any ghost. I was no longer afraid of dying. I was afraid of living, without doing something to deserve it. For the next 7 days, we planned, carefully, quietly, because one mistake would mean death for everyone involved. My father traveled to Wilmington twice a month, business meetings, shipping contracts, tobacco sales. He was scheduled to leave on September 20th, 3 days away from the plantation. 3 days where Peton House would be vulnerable. That was our window. My role was simple, information. I knew the house better than anyone alive. I had grown up inside those walls. Played in its corridors, hidden from my tutors in its secret rooms. Even the cellar beneath the house, the place the order used for its rituals. I had seen once as a child, before I understood what it was for. I drew the layout for Mercy. Every hallway, every hidden panel, every staircase. The entrance to the cellar was concealed behind a false panel in the pantry. You had to press 3 stones in the foundation wall in a specific order. If you didn't know the pattern, you would never find it. Mercy listened without interrupting. Her face gave nothing away, but I could see something changing behind her eyes. Not hope. Hope would have been too fragile. This was something harder. Determination. Her role was far more dangerous than mine. She had to find allies, people willing to risk their lives. She began speaking quietly to others on the plantation. Only those she trusted, only those who had their own reasons to hate the order. By the end of the week, 7 people had agreed to help, 7 enslaved men and women, each one carrying a wound carved by the order. Samuel had lost his wife during one of the rituals 5 years earlier. Esther's brother had vanished after being taken to the cellar. 2 others had lost children. People the county had simply forgotten. People the order believed would never matter. They met in secret, after dark, behind the slave quarters where no white man ever bothered to walk. Everyone understands the risk, Mercy asked them. If this fails, we all die. Answered first, his voice steady. We understand. But we're here anyway. September 20th arrived heavy with heat. My father departed at dawn, carriage wheels grinding against gravel, 2 servants with him. 3 days before he returned. At midnight on September 21st, we moved. 8 of us gathered in the kitchen of Peton House, Mercy, Samuel, 6 others, and me. No one spoke, the silence was thick with fear. I led them to the pantry. Pressed the stones in the foundation wall,
1, 2, 3. The panel swung open. Cold air breathed up from the darkness below, and with it, a smell. Old smoke, rotting meat. Dried blood. Even before we descended the stairs, everyone understood what kind of place this was. Mercy lifted a lantern. "Stay close," she said. The staircase twisted downward for 20 narrow steps, the walls pressed in around us, stone sweating with damp. When we reached the bottom, the cellar opened into a massive chamber. Nearly 50 feet across, supported by heavy timber beams. In the center stood the altar, a slab of carved stone covered with symbols. Some ancient, some stolen from traditions my father and his friends never truly understood. Around it were knives, candles, bowls, things I refused to examine too closely. Samuel whispered something under his breath. A prayer perhaps, or a curse. But Mercy didn't stop. She walked straight to the far wall. Pressed another sequence of stones, a section of wall pivoted inward, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, on a wooden pedestal, sat the ledger. Bound in leather, dark, almost black. Iron clasps holding it closed. Mercy opened it carefully, and began to read. The room grew quieter with every page. Dates, names, descriptions, rituals. Victims. The entries stretched back decades. 43 deaths documented in meticulous handwriting. Most enslaved people. Some poor white men, even 2 indigenous children. Each entry detailed exactly what the order had done, what parts of the body were taken.
Leave those sacrifices gave them power, longevity, authority. Beside me someone began to cry softly. Samuel. His wife's name appeared halfway through the ledger. "God forgive them," he whispered. I could barely breathe, because I recognized the handwriting. My father's. "Dear God," I murmured. "He wrote these." Mercy closed the book slowly. "No," she said quietly. "They all did. Now we copy everything we can." We worked for hours, by lantern light, hands shaking, copying names, dates, descriptions detailed enough that no one could dismiss them as rumors. If this evidence ever reached the outside world, it would destroy every man in the order. But just as we were finishing, we heard something above us. Footsteps, voices. My blood ran cold. My father wasn't supposed to return until the 23rd. Mercy looked at me. "No panic, only calculation. Take everyone through the root cellar tunnel," she whispered. "There's an exit to the fields." "What about you?" I asked. "I'll make sure he suspects nothing." I hesitated, but there was no time to argue. We fled through the secondary passage, a narrow tunnel built decades earlier as an escape route. Behind us, Mercy remained alone in the cellar, resetting every panel, every stone, every secret door. By the time my father descended the main staircase with a lamp in his hand, the chamber looked untouched. He found Mercy standing calmly in the darkness. "Mercy," he said, "what are you doing down here?" "Looking for herbs, Master Peton." Her voice was perfectly steady. "Some medicines require cool places." My father studied her face, searching for a lie. But Mercy had been lying to white men her entire life. He finally nodded. "Where is William?" "Asleep in his room. It's not yet dawn." My father went upstairs immediately to check. And I lay there in my bed, pretending to sleep, while he stood over me, examining my face, waiting for some sign of guilt. But I kept my breathing slow, even. Finally he stepped back. "You look better," he said. "Much better. You've done good work," he told Mercy. Then he left. When Mercy returned to my room, I opened my eyes. "That was too close," she whispered. I nodded, because now we both understood something terrifying.
The order was closer to discovering us than we had ever imagined.
October 15th.
The night everything collapsed. William was supposed to leave the plantation the next morning, travel north, carry the copies of the ledger, expose the Order of the Crimson Crown to the world, but evil rarely waits patiently. Sometimes, it strikes first. That evening, as darkness settled over the plantation, Harrison Peton walked toward Mercy's cabin. He was not alone. 6 men followed behind him, all members of the order, all armed. Mercy knew immediately. Something had gone wrong. "Harrison," she said calmly from the doorway, "what brings you here this late?" Harrison smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only certainty. "We need to talk." Before Mercy could respond, the men pushed past her into the cabin. They overturned furniture, pulled up floorboards, ripped apart her belongings. And then, they found it. The copies. Pages of testimony, names, dates, crimes. Harrison picked up one of the papers. "Read it slowly," his expression darkening with every line. "You've been busy." Mercy said nothing. The men gathered the pages into a pile, one struck a match. Flames spread across the paper. 3 months of work turning to ash. Mercy lunged forward, but 2 men grabbed her arms, holding her still while the evidence burned. "You should have known better," Harrison said. "You cannot fight the order. We are power. We are the natural order. And you," he looked at her with cold contempt, "are property." They dragged her to the main house, down into the cellar. Chains were fastened around her wrists, bolted to the stone altar. Harrison leaned close. "We have a ritual tomorrow night. You will be perfect for it." Then they left her alone, in darkness, but Harrison made one fatal mistake. He believed Mercy was alone. He forgot something every enslaved person understood. Information moves, quietly, quickly. Through whispers, through trust, through survival. Within an hour, Samuel knew. Within 2 hours, 20 people knew. And William, hiding near the slave quarters, heard the news. Mercy had been taken. He could still run. He could leave the plantation, escape north, save himself. But then he remembered something. Grace. Her eyes in the shadows, watching, waiting, judging. And he understood something for the first time in his life. Redemption is not something you survive. It is something you risk everything for. William went to Samuel. "I need help." Samuel answered without hesitation. "We're already gathering people." By midnight, 37 enslaved men and women surrounded Peton House. They carried tools, axes, sickles, hammers, anything that could become a weapon. 3 white overseers joined them. Men who had quietly despised the order for years, men who were ready to see it burn. William had done one more thing. He soaked the ground floor of the house with lamp oil, especially around the cellar entrance. At midnight, he struck a match. Fire spread fast. Faster than anyone expected, flames racing through wooden floors and dry beams. Below them, in the cellar, the order had begun their ritual. 17 men, robes, candles, knives. Then the smoke came. They tried to flee up the stairs, but the staircase was already engulfed in flames. They were trapped. William and the others entered through the kitchen, descending through the root cellar tunnel. When they burst into the chamber, the order panicked. These men were used to power, to control, to laws that protected them. But down here, none of that mattered. Steel met flesh. Axes met bone. Years of suffering exploded into a single, brutal moment. Harrison saw his son through the smoke. "William, what are you doing? I'm your father." William raised the rifle. "You stopped being my father the day you made me a monster." The gun fired. Harrison collapsed. Not dead, but dying, watching the world he built burn around him.
Samuel shattered the chains holding Mercy. She staggered free, weak, but alive. "We have to leave," Samuel said. "The house is collapsing." They escaped through the root cellar tunnel, emerging into the fields. Behind them, Peton House burned like a funeral pyre. By dawn, nothing remained, only charred beams, ash, and 17 bodies in the cellar. The official story was simple: a tragic accident, a lamp knocked over during a late-night meeting. No investigation followed. Too many powerful men were already dead, and their enemies were satisfied. That night, Mercy and William fled north, along with 15 others who chose freedom over fear. They followed the Underground Railroad, moving from safe house to safe house, always one step ahead of slave catchers. Eventually, they reached Philadelphia. Mercy became a healer, a midwife, a woman respected in the free black community. William became a teacher, working with black children, trying to repay a debt that could never truly be repaid. 5 years later, a package arrived at the abolitionist newspaper The Liberator. Inside was a handwritten account, the story of the Order of the Crimson Crown. Every ritual, every crime, every name. Half the pages were written in Mercy's careful script, the other half in William's hand. They made sure the truth survived, even if the men who committed those crimes did not. Because sometimes justice does not come from courts, or laws, or powerful men. Sometimes, justice comes from the people those men believed powerless. And sometimes, the only way to destroy evil is to burn the house that protects it,